3.1 Practice and Research. This is my reflective video for the completion of Project 2. I started off with the theme, dyslexia, and took on board what my feedback from Amy, my tutor, what we discussed, and she forwarded me some research of some artists and their practice, which was very much creative. There was an array of variations of practitioners, but what I took on board was did the research on these, and also coincided this with the more theoretical side of dyslexia. So basically what I'd done was I'd taken on board John Walter's capsid, looked at the external structure of a cell, which is what capsid stands for. Then I'd moved on to Laura Splain, Laura Blake, and looked at their practices and their mixed media, and came across the German playground inventor, children's playgrounds, Aldo van Eyck, which took further investigations into my own responses. Now, with the research that I'd carried out, I sifted through, didn't want to make any commitment to any of the research, but I pulled out and extracted various ideas and meanings and so forth. A lot of the research kind of bounced off each other and also ran alongside a good, strong, basic foundation of the research to do with dyslexia. So the project, the final stages of the project, I should say, were pretty much responses to this in-depth, broader research. The project operated working on mini projects. I find that works well for me, and it was kind of each day it was looking and critically reflecting, using critical strategies, creative strategies, and making responses. So they kind of bounced off one another, and I felt as though I was making formative decisions and choices, but making dyslexia the core of the research, and then the investigations just expand and expand and expand. I haven't, as of yet, looked too in depth at this stage. A few ideas with some emotional work on dyslexia and the knitted cord, with the diagnosis that red is the colour of dyslexia awareness. So I produced a selection of samples that were quite emotional, since my own personal diagnosis of dyslexia, so I could relate quite well with this research, and this has helped me support the practice and working independently. So everything's become broader, everything has become unanswered, but I think what it will allow me to do for Project 3 is actually return and pick up on some in-depth ideas and suggestions, and swap and change the media. What I did discover was the research is starting to introduce new threads. I came across some history of the colour red, which I don't particularly like using the colour red at the moment, because I'd used it in contemporary context on a project called Metamorphosis. So I kind of, because it was okay, but I didn't know whether I felt as though I was just replicating some old work, but I pushed and pushed, and I've, continued with that. I've also found that the creativity with playgrounds developed further responses. And then what I started to do was to look at my own more independent research, with dyslexia, but also still engaging with creative practitioners such as artists as Picasso and Jackson Pollock, which again I've left open, which I want to bring into my new work to continue with more in-depth research. But their abstract work has again opened up a new thread with some abstract graffiti imagery that I came across. So all in all of the research and investigations and the responses to the textiles have all been pretty much positive. I have tried to work organised, tried to work in depth, and also used an audience, promoting work via Facebook, Instagram. As mentioned early on in the assignment, I've pulled together an audience of practitioners, fine artists, jewellery makers, and so forth, and textile practitioners that will get to see my work, and it will be quite nice to have some critical feedback from these people. With the level 3, we've already engaged in some creative conversations, and over the duration of these projects, we will book monthly chats, Zoom meetings, where we will critically analyse each other's work. Our next meeting is the 20th of February, and we've decided that we are going to critically analyse the work, but not necessarily give positive feedback, but to just put in some negative, what you could have done and what you should have done, or what I think as an opinion. Because we think also, we agreed that in our last meeting that this would be quite a good way to pull back and possibly reevaluate some of the work, to make improvements to our own practice.